This is Moneyline Mania with Chaz and the crew.
Chazzy, and our Moneyline Mania team. What is going on, my friends?
I like Chaz and the crew, but there's a lot of them. We got a lot of guys, and as we get closer to Wake and Bake, we're going to have all of them. When I'm on a hiatus, I kind of back away from everything because, as you know, creating audio files and video files and following sports and handicapping, it's all work. And so I watched a lot of movies. You know what I watched? I watched From Here to Eternity for the very first time.
You're a piece of work, man. You have some personality.
How old is that movie, right?
I
never watched it. And it was a really, really good movie. It wasn't like the bazillion Academy Awards, but it was a really good movie. I'd never watched it before.
Well, it's a woman's movie, that's why.
I was with my wife, and probably why we enjoyed it. For me, guys, it's the beginning of Derby week, so I look at things literally. If you got four legs, I care. If you don't got four legs, don't talk to me. So May 21st, we're looking at our first Wake and Bake of the new season. These guys will both be parts. They basically both have their own show. That's the thing. You all get your own show. It's just one-on-one, so it's pretty cool. We'll be talking a little bit of everything, but right now with John from GMF Sports, John, you're starting into baseball. You got a couple weeks in, a dozen games or so. What are you seeing for the future this summer?
A lot of these pitchers are starting to get into form just because we just had the kind of shortened spring training. I'm impressed by the way the Yankees have started. Anthony Rizzo has just been on fire swinging the bat. So I'm just hopeful that core can stay healthy. Also, I'm surprised about the trending unders. A lot of games have been trending under, which is surprising, especially considering the state of some of these bullpens. So I'm impressed by the Yankees so far. I like the way they're playing.
Let's talk about the game Sunday. We got two NBA games, just like your opinion on both of them.
Quick turnaround for that Warriors-Memphis Grizzlies game. Probably going to actually have to go with Golden State here, just because of the short turnaround. And Steph Curry has been playing phenomenal. The way Golden State runs their offense, where they just completely run you up and down the court, those backdoor screens. If you take a look at what they did to Denver, Jokic was completely exhausted by the time that third or fourth quarter comes around from following all these backdoor cuts running up and down. I have to think that Golden State is going to continue that trend. We've seen Memphis, get down by double digits numerous times throughout the series of Minnesota. But if this is the case with Golden State, they're not going to be able to come back with Golden State. So I'm going to have to lean Golden State in that situation. And then we're going tomorrow, Bucks versus the Celtics. The winner of this is going to be your East Coast representation for the NBA Finals. Boston's playing at home. I was big on Boston during that first round versus the Nets, where they swept the board with them, which was a little surprising. And I'm actually going to stick with the Boston Celtics here, game one. I think they're going to take game one, and they're going to continue kind of the roll. It's probably going to go 6 or 7 games. Could go either way, but I'm going to go with Boston here.
The first series, did you bet a lot of them?
No, not at all. I've been very selective with the NBA. It's tricky throughout the regular season, and especially here during the playoffs. So my units as far as betting is probably considered half units for NBA, being very selective in the spots.
Ironically, remember how we were talking about it all year with the crazy swings from quarter to quarter. That's over now. We're in the playoffs, but no, it's happening again.
It happened, I believe, 3 times during that Memphis-Minnesota series where, Minnesota had double-digit leads, and we're talking double-digit leads late third quarter, fourth quarter, and they just completely collapsed. And that's astonishing in a playoff game, especially when Minnesota was home. We've seen those big swings during the regular season, which have been happening more this year. But yeah, you're absolutely right. To see these major swings, double digits, down 10, and then they win by 6 or 7, absolutely crazy in the playoffs.
The funny part about betting on the NBA is that those 8, 7, and 8 seeds, sometimes they probably shouldn't be there to begin with. And I think that's why you see it. And, I've always told you guys from the beginning of the year, you've known me, wake me up when there's 4 teams left. And I think this year is going to be the same.
That's kind of why I'm leaning. I think whoever wins this Bucks-Celtics series is going to be your representation. As far as the Eastern Conference goes, I'm not too impressed with the way Philadelphia looks so far. The Milwaukee Bucks, they're the defending champions, so you always got to put them up there until somebody beats them, and I think the Celtics have the best chance to do that. Boston was extremely hot during the second half of the regular season. Tatum has been unbelievable. Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year, 2 of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and I'm looking forward to the matchup.
It's funny you mentioned you're staying away from it, because I know that on Vegas Insider, Jonathan from San Antone. If you take his basketball pick, tough, his baseball pick.
Yeah, just seeing the ball well. I mean, I think at the beginning of the year, you get to see a lot of value. I think the books are still trying to make what the line should be. If you look at the Yankee line, they're minus 200. But if you take the game, they should have been minus 300. And I think there's a big misconception where people think that when you're taking value, it's got to be an underdog. It has to be a plus money or, hey, I'm getting this even. But sometimes value arises in a minus 200, and you just have to not be afraid to take that. Yesterday, I took the run line on that game, but I got minus 120. Minus 1.5 should have been probably minus 150, minus 160. It was just a huge mismatch. So right now, it's a couple weeks in, and I think the books will adjust. The lines are going to start getting a little sharper, seeing the ball well. And it's the unders, I think, to me, is crazy. But once it warms up, it's going to start warming up. You know, it's been kind of cold in Chicago and Boston and New York. They're playing games in the 40s and, 45-degree weather. Summertime, it's going to be a nice, ripe, humid 90 degrees, and the balls will start flying out of there a little bit more.
You look at the outliers of baseball season. In the beginning and at the end, there's frickin' snow. Do you ever hit something with the handle when it's cold out? Man, that hurts all the way up to your elbows. There's no doubt about it.
All right, Warriors at Grizzlies, game number 1. You know, it's interesting. What do the Grizzlies need to do to win this series? Obviously, John Morant's athletic ability. I think he's the better guard in this series. I know everybody keeps talking about Steph Curry and Poole, who's been fantastic all season long. He's taken over for Steph Curry from the injury, and then going into the playoffs, he was the best player in the first series. This particular series, I think the Grizzlies are the better defensive team. They're the more athletic team, and I think they have more depth than the Golden State Warriors. Now, Golden State with Wiggins, Klay Thompson gives them a different dimension that they didn't have last year, and that's why they didn't really get far in the playoffs. They had the play-in game. Going into this series, it's really going to depend on who wants it more, who's the more athletic team. And I do believe in game number 1, being that the Grizzlies at home, the Grizzlies are one of the best home teams in the NBA. I like the Grizzlies in this game. I think they're the more athletic team. I think that it's going to take a little while for them to understand how to defend John Morant because of his ability to move in the pick and roll. He's one of the best. Give me John Morant and the Grizzlies in game number 1 to take a 1-0 lead. I do want to go into some of the player props. In game number 1, John Morant to score 25, bet the over, -20. I'm going to say John Morant scores 25 or more in this game. Bet on the over on this. Jordan Poole, 18.5. I believe that Jordan Poole will score more than 18.5 in this game. So bet on the over. Steph Curry, 27.5. Bet on the under. Bucks Celtics. Well, obviously the Celtics being the home team, a lot of people are predicting that the Celtics will win this game. Now, the interesting thing going into this game is, what are they going to do defensively against the Boston Celtics when Tatum and Jaylen Brown are on the court? And especially the way, obviously, the Defensive Player of the Year has played Marcus Smart, who played very well against the Brooklyn Nets. I think they'll be able to shut down Marcus Smart, and Marcus Smart is probably at some points going to be able to defend the Greek Freak because of the way he presses tall centers and the big power forwards. What's interesting about this game is the Boston Celtics are at home. I expect the Boston Celtics to win game number 1. Now, I don't think the Boston Celtics will win this series, but game number 1, being that they're going into the game with all the time off, expectations that a lot of people believe that this could be Boston's year, I really think the Boston Celtics will win game number 1 against the Milwaukee Bucks. I still think the Milwaukee Bucks have to prove to me that they can get a secondary offensive game from one of the other guys besides the Greek Freak. I believe Boston's going to keep Giannis on the outside. If the Celtics keep him on the outside and he can't get into the paint, it's going to be not smooth sailing for the Milwaukee Bucks in game number 1. But I have the Celtics winning game number 1. Giannis, he's expected to score 30.5. Expect him to score on the under in this game. Jaylen Brown, 23.5. I would say 23.5 is more like it. Jason Tatum, 30 points or more. I say Jason Tatum scores less than that. I would say Jason Tatum 27 or less in this game, so bet on the under on that. Marcus Smart, 14.5. Bet on the over.
30 points is so many points, isn't it?
We know the Boston Celtics are the best defensive team in basketball. They've been the best in the second half of the season. Great defense, not only from Marcus Smart, team defense. They're playing well on the perimeter. They're the best backcourt defense in all of the NBA. And going into this game, even though the strength of Milwaukee is not their backcourt, it's their front court, I think they're going to be able to contain Drew Holiday, especially in game number 1. They're going to have to figure out how they're going to be able to move the pick and roll through Giannis for them to win this series. But I do believe that they have a very well-rounded coach. I think he's the better coach, and he's got the more experience, and they're the champions. So until Boston proves that they can knock off the Milwaukee Bucks, I still think Milwaukee wins in 7 games. But give me the Celtics in game number 1.
Jonathan, did we hear your NBA plays?
Give me the Grizzlies. I think they have the momentum on their side. If you're the Grizzlies, you kind of look at that series and say, man, we kind of got dominated. They should have lost the series. And when I looked at it, I was on Minnesota every game, so I took 3 bad beats, up double digits 3 times in the fourth quarter, still can't close it out. Worst coach in the NBA. But I think that they're going to come into this series. They get the home game first. It's a statement game. Steph Curry's been playing well, but I think he's also banged up. And I just think that right now, Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, they just have more to play for and kind of a chip on their shoulder. Goes against what I thought, because my preseason, I did put a 9-1 Western Conference championship play in on the Warriors, and I put in a 13-1 NBA championship on the Warriors just because I love the value. Memphis is just the better team right now. For the Boston game, this is one game where I want to take the Bucks. I still believe that Giannis is the best player in the league. Kind of got his free throws under control a lot better than he was last year. And the one piece for me is Khris Middleton. I think he means a lot. And without him, you're expecting a lot of guys on the bench to get 15 to 20 a game. And I don't know if you can count on that. When you look at Boston, I think they played so well against the Nets. I just don't think the Nets were that good. I think they had too much baggage. They brought in Ben Simmons. That was a mistake. Kyrie Irving, most of the home games this season, I think they were just in turmoil. And the Nets chanting, "We want Boston," added fuel to the fire. I don't think it's going to be as a dominant of a performance. I could see this going 6 to 7 games. Game 1, I'm going to be laying the points with the Celtics. I just think they are healthier and they don't need their role players to score 20. If Pritchard comes off the bench and scores 10, they'll win the game. So go ahead and lay the points on the Celtics.
Yeah, when I look at that game, what jumped out at me is that all 4 times that they played this year, they scored more than 220. And the line is 220. So I'm going with the over. When you look at some of those games back in December, that's a long time ago. But right now, Milwaukee's scoring some points. Boston's scoring some points. I like the over. They have the same exact record in the regular season. You know you got 2 really good teams. But in the second game, the last 5 road games for Golden State, every single one of them, the team has scored more than the time before. I'm looking at the totals again. They're scoring 109 points, Golden State is, in 8 of 9. Memphis is scoring 109 points in 9 of 10. 109 and 109 is 218. I'm going to hope for the over on that game.